Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring a spiritual practice that feels really, well, completely upside down. It challenges, every instinct we have about protecting ourselves. We're diving into Tonglen, a Tibetan practice. The name itself means giving and taking.
That's right. Giving and taking, or sending and receiving.
And the basic instruction is just wild. When you encounter suffering, you're told to deliberately breathe that pain in.
You take it on.
And then you breathe out all your own happiness, your relief, your well-being out to others.
It's a total reversal of our usual logic, isn't it? Our ego logic.
Completely.
The mechanism itself sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. On the in-breath, you visualize taking in all the suffering.
Like what kind of suffering?
Any kind, really. Pain, fear, anguish, and importantly, the causes of that suffering. Often people imagine it as thick, hot, dark smoke.
Okay, dark smoke coming in.
And then on the out-breath, you visualize sending out the opposite. Happiness, peace, well-being, and their causes. Often visualized as cool, bright, soothing light.
Wow. Okay, but wait. Breathing in dark smoke. I mean, every part of me wants to recoil from that idea. How do you stop that negativity from sticking to you, from crushing you?
Yeah, that's the immediate visceral reaction, isn't it? And that feeling, that resistance, that's actually the whole point.
How so?
The practice is designed as a kind of systematic deconditioning. It's contemplative. Its mission is to directly dismantle what Buddhism calls the self-cherishing attitude.
That constant focus on me, me, me.
Exactly. That relentless drive to protect the self, push away pain, grasp at pleasure. Each breath cycle is meant to weaken the ego's grip.
So it's about dissolving the walls around the heart, as they say.
Precisely. And to your really important question about safety, about being crushed, Tonglen, is, it's basically designed to fail if you try to do it without the right philosophical foundation.
Ah, okay. So there's a prerequisite understanding needed.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And that foundation is what transforms it from something potentially harmful, like self-centered martyrdom, into this radical kind of alchemy.
Right. So our mission for you, the listener today, is to really unpack that foundation. How can embracing pain actually be safe? How can it be transformative? And what's the spiritual architecture that makes this radical exchange work without just leading to complete burnout?
To really get that, we need to look at where this practice comes from, its lineage.
Yeah, this isn't some new self-help trend. It's ancient, part of the Lojong tradition.
Exactly. Lojong means mind training. And Tonglen's lineage traces way back to the 11th century to a major Indian master named Atisha de Bankara Shujinana.
Atisha. He was key in the second spreading of Buddhism in Tibet, wasn't he? Founder of the Kadam school.
That's him. Hugely influential.
Yeah.
Really emphasized cultivating the altruistic mind.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Atisha was this giant scholar, right? Teaching at Vikramashila, this massive monastic university in India.
Sop scholar.
You'd think the deepest teachings on compassion, on this kind of heart training, would come from that environment.
You would think so, but they didn't. The absolute core instructions on cultivating Bodhicitta, that's the altruistic heart that fuels Tonglen, they came from a master named Dharmakirtishya.
And he wasn't in India.
No, he was in Sumatra, modern-day Indonesia.
Sumatra, wow. So
Atisha believed these specific teachings were so vital, so essential, that he undertook this incredibly dangerous year-long sea voyage just to get there.
a whole year at sea back then.
And then he stayed and studied with Dharmakirtishya for 12 years.
12 years. Just to deepen his understanding of compassion and Bodhicitta.
That's how crucial he felt it was. It really highlights how central this intention, this altruistic drive is to the whole path.
Absolutely, that dedication is incredible.
And when Atisha eventually returned to Tibet, these oral instructions he received were later systematized. A teacher named Geshe Chikawa, Yeshe Dorje, codified them into the famous 7 points of mind training.
And Tonglen is right in there.
Explicitly, one of the key slogans is literally, sending and taking should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath. So it's positioned as the core method for actually doing this courageous exchange of self for other.
Okay, so that brings us smack into the engine driving this whole thing. Bodhicitta. We need to break that down. It's more than just like feeling nice towards people.
Oh, much more. Bodhicitta is the absolute bedrock of the practice. You can say it's the entire point.
Define it for us.
It's the altruistic aspiration, the deep wish to attain full enlightenment. Not for yourself, but for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception.
For everyone. Wow.
And Tonglen is the direct, active, you could say, embodied enactment of that very intention. It works on two levels or wings. Method and wisdom.
Method and wisdom, okay.
The method part is what's called relative bodhicitta. That's the active compassion, the intense wish for others to be free from suffering. That's the part telling you, breathe in the dark smoke.
That's the
engine. But that engine is potentially useless, even dangerous, if it's not grounded in the wisdom component.
And that's the safety net, the answer to my earlier question about not getting crushed.
Exactly. This is where shunyata, or emptiness, comes in. It's indispensable.
Okay, emptiness. Why is understanding emptiness so critical for practicing Tonglen safely?
Because, well, think about it. If you try to absorb the world's suffering with what you perceive as a solid, fixed, inherently real self, that self will feel overwhelmed. It will feel crushed.
Right, it feels too solid, too vulnerable.
But the wisdom of emptiness reveals that the self doing the taking, the other who is suffering, and even the suffering itself, none of these things have solid, independent, inherent existence.
They're not fixed things.
They're fluid, they're transient, they arise dependently, they lack that concrete core we usually assume they have.
So it's not saying the pain isn't real or doesn't hurt?
Oh no, the pain is definitely experienced. It's very real experientially. But the container, the self that seems to be absorbing it, isn't inherently solid or separate.
Can you give an analogy?
Yeah. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to absorb toxic acid. If you pour it onto a solid sponge, the sponge gets damaged, right? Stained, maybe dissolved. It's a fixed thing taking the hit.
Okay, makes sense.
But now imagine pouring that same acid into the vast, boundless ocean. The ocean represents that realization of emptiness, of shunyata. It's spacious, fluid, interconnected.
So the acid just disperses.
Instantly, it dissolves into that unlimited space without fundamentally harming the ocean itself. The ocean's nature isn't threatened.
Ah, I see. So the suffering taken in during Tonglen isn't absorbed by a fragile, separate ego.
Exactly. It's visualized as dissolving immediately into that open, spacious awareness, that empty nature of mind, and that psychological boundary dissolution is what makes it safe.
It shifts it from being a sacrifice to alchemy.
Powerful alchemy, yes, that's the key transformation.
But okay, that makes the whole idea of the bodhisattva, the practitioner on this path, seem less like a martyr and more like a kind of transformer. Which reminds me of that really vivid analogy they use, the peacock.
Oh yeah, the peacock analogy is perfect. It illustrates the point beautifully.
How does it go again?
Well, the idea is that ordinary beings are like, say, crows. If a crow eats poison, it dies. Simple as that.
Right, avoid poison.
But the bodhisattva, cultivating this path, is like a peacock. Peacocks are said to eat poisonous plants.
Things that would kill other creatures.
Exactly. But for the peacock, consuming these poisons, which symbolize the root mental afflictions like desire, anger, ignorance, doesn't kill it. Instead, it transmutes them.
Into the beautiful feathers.
Into vibrant plumage, into spiritual power, into strength. Tonglen is seen as that active, fearless process of taking in the poison of suffering and transmuting it.
Taking it in and making it part of your strength, part of your beauty in a way.
That's the idea, active transformation.
Okay, so let's get practical. How does someone actually start doing this? I imagine you don't just jump in and try to breathe in like global warming anxiety on day one.
Definitely not, no. There are important prerequisites. First, you need some stability of mind.
Like basic mindfulness.
Yeah, usually through shamatha practice, calm, abiding meditation, often just focusing on the breath to settle the mind. You need a reasonably stable platform.
Makes sense. What else?
Then you need to actively cultivate some warmth, some kindness. It's often the heart first, often by reflecting on unconditional kindness you've received, maybe from a parent, a caregiver, even a pet.
To get the compassion engine running.
Exactly, to make sure it's adequately fueled before you start taking on the heavy stuff.
Okay, foundation set, then the formal practice itself. It's quite structured, isn't it? I know teachers like Pema Chodron lay out clear stages.
Yes, very structured, usually progressive.
Yeah.
Let's walk through a common 4-stage model.
Stage 1 starts kind of at the end with the wisdom aspect.
It does. Stage 1 is often called flashing on absolute bodhicitta. You basically just rest, even for a moment, in that state of open, non-conceptual awareness, that spaciousness, that clarity we talked about.
The emptiness realization.
Yeah. Touch into that first. It frames the whole practice, remembering the ocean before you deal with the acid.
Okay, frames it in wisdom. Then what?
Then stage 2 simplifies things right down. You work just with texture and energy, establishing the rhythm. No specific people involved yet.
Just the breathing in and out.
Right. You inhale qualities associated with suffering, hot, dark, heavy, maybe claustrophobic, visualizing it as that thick smoke or tar.
Okay, heavy, dark in.
And you exhale qualities associated with relief. Cool, bright, light. clear, soothing. Visualizing it as radiant light or a cool breeze, you just get the flow going.
Got it. Rhythm and texture. Then stage 3 gets personal, right?
Yes, this is working with the personal object.
Right.
Now you bring someone specific to mind. Crucially, you start with someone for whom you naturally feel compassion.
Someone easy to care about. A sick friend, maybe.
Exactly. A loved one, a pet, someone suffering whom you genuinely wish well. You breathe in their specific pain, their sickness, their fear.
Visualizing it as the dark smoke.
And you breathe out relief, healing, comfort, light, specifically to them.
Okay. That makes sense as a starting point, but what if you're the one who's really suffering? If you're overwhelmed by your own pain?
Yes. There's a really important adaptation taught here. It's brilliant, actually. If you feel stuck in your own stuff, fear, anxiety, physical pain, whatever.
Which happens a lot.
Absolutely. You make that personal suffering the object of the practice. You breathe in your own fear, your own pain.
But isn't that just wallowing in it?
Here's the twist. You breathe it in, but with the thought, I am doing this for all beings who are feeling this exact same fear, this same pain right now.
So you universalize it immediately.
Exactly. You connect your specific suffering to the suffering of countless others experiencing the same thing. And then you breathe out relief, peace, well-being to yourself and to all those others simultaneously.
Wow, that completely flips the script on self-pity. It breaks that self-centered loop.
Instantly. By expanding the scope just like that, it's very powerful.
Okay, that's stage 3. But stage 4, this feels like the big leap, expanding the circle.
It is. Stage 4 involves gradually widening the focus. You move from the loved one to neutral people. Strangers you pass on the street, people you don't know or have strong feelings about. You practice for them.
Okay, widening.
And then finally, the most challenging part for most people, you deliberately include those you consider difficult. Enemies. People who have harmed you, people you strongly disagree with.
Oof, that's tough. Do people hit a wall there?
It's often the biggest hurdle, yes, but it's also considered the most liberating step. The instruction is clear. Include them with the same fearless intention.
Why? Why embrace their negativity?
Because their suffering, their anger, their ignorance, their deep-seated unhappiness is often the cause of their harmful actions. That negative smoke is potent, and transforming it is key. The practice isn't truly complete. The compassion isn't boundless until it includes everyone, without exception.
No exceptions. That's radical.
It is.
Now, one thing I really appreciate about this whole Lojong mind training tradition is how practical it aims to be. It's not just for the meditation cushion. There's this idea of Tonglen on the spot, right?
Absolutely. That's crucial. It's the immediate, informal application of the core exchange in everyday life.
How does that work?
Anytime you encounter suffering directly, in real time, you see a distressing news report, you witness someone struggling at work, you feel a flash of your own anger or jealousy arise. Instantly, right there on the spot, you do a quick exchange.
Just a breath or two.
Yeah. Breathe in the tightness, the pain, the aggression you're seeing or feeling. Breathe out spaciousness, calm, kindness, even just one conscious cycle.
And the purpose of that quick hit?
It prevents that immediate habitual reaction, shutting down, getting angry, withdrawing, feeling overwhelmed. It keeps the heart open and transforms the moment rather than letting it solidify negativity.
Using the difficult moment itself as the practice. Okay, we absolutely have to address the big fear, the major misconception people have when they first hear about this.
Right. The am I going to get sick question.
Yeah. When you tell someone, I'm breathing in the sickness and pain of others, their first thought is often, are you literally taking on their illness? Is this some kind of magical karmic transfer?
It's a very common fear and understandable. But teachers are consistently clear on this point. Tonglen is mental training. That's what Lojong means. It is not a literal, physical, or magical transfer of sickness or bad karma.
So you're not going to catch someone's cold by doing Tonglen for them?
No. It's the courageous intention to exchange self for other, the willingness to open to suffering that purifies the practitioner's mind. It dissolves the illusion of a solid, separate self. It generates immense, positive mental energy or potential.
So the focus is on purifying your own mind stream.
Yes. Through this radical act of compassion, it's not about performing some kind of psychic surgery on someone else.
Okay, that clarification is vital. Now, the outcome. This is the biggest paradox for me. You're engaging directly, repeatedly with suffering. Why doesn't this lead to depression, compassion fatigue, burnout? Why do practitioners report increased joy and fearlessness?
It seems totally counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Completely.
The key insight here is that the biggest source of our own chronic anxiety, dissatisfaction, and exhaustion is the ego's relentless 24/7 job of protecting and gratifying itself.
That constant vigilance. Am I okay? Am I safe? Do I have enough? Do people like me?
Exactly. It's exhausting work maintaining that fortress of self. Tonglen systematically dismantles that fortress. It reverses that exhausting effort.
So the joy comes from
being liberated from that self-preoccupation. It's like finally putting down an incredibly heavy backpack you didn't even fully realize you were carrying. The joy isn't necessarily bubbly happiness, but a deep sense of release, spaciousness, connection, and fearlessness that arises when the walls come down.
The act of giving, of extending outwards, is inherently freeing.
Inherently expansive and fearless. Yes. It cuts the root of self-centered anxiety.
It's interesting to contrast Tonglen with a practice maybe more people are familiar with, like metta or loving-kindness meditation.
Good comparison. They're related, often practiced together, but they feel quite different.
Oh, so?
Metta primarily focuses on radiating positive feelings outwards, sending out wishes like, may you be happy, may you be peaceful. It's generally uplifting, warming.
Right, generating positive state.
Tonglen, on the other hand, is, well, it's emotionally much more intense. It's grittier, you could say.
Because it directly engages with the negative.
Exactly. It takes existing pain, darkness, suffering as its actual raw material, its central point of focus, and works with that, which often means it requires a bit more emotional stability or grounding than starting with metta.
So maybe metta builds the foundation of warmth, and Tonglen takes it into the more challenging territory.
That's a common way to approach it, yes.
Now, we see mindfulness and compassion practices being adapted for secular settings all the time. Things like Stanford's compassion cultivation training, which apparently uses Tonglen-like techniques effectively, say, for healthcare workers dealing with burnout.
That's right. CCT and similar programs have shown real benefits.
But there's a potential issue here, isn't there? The secularization dilemma. What happens when you take a practice like Tonglen out of its deep philosophical context?
It's a significant question. While the practical benefits, like reducing burnout or increasing pro-social behavior, are definitely valuable and real, extracting the technique from its core, specifically the wisdom view of shunyata and the ultimate motivation of Bodhicitta, does carry risks.
Risks like what?
Well, the main risk is that a practice designed for radical ego dismantling, for dissolving the self-other boundary, gets subtly repurposed into just another tool for, for ego strengthening.
Making the existing self feel better.
Kind of. Turning it into just a conventional therapeutic technique for emotional regulation, aimed at making the current self feel more resilient, more competent, less stressed, without challenging its fundamental structure.
I've heard some adaptations even add protective elements.
Exactly. Sometimes you see instructions where you visualize, say, protective shield or a healing light that filters or neutralizes the negative energy before you take it in.
Which sounds safer, maybe?
It sounds safer from the ego's perspective, but it fundamentally changes the practice. Traditional Tonglen works on the premise that your awakened heart, your basic nature, is already spacious and transformative enough to handle any poison, like the ocean handles the acid. Adding a buffer reinforces the idea that the self needs shielding, which subtly reinforces the very self-other boundary the practice aims to dissolve.
So it risks becoming self-help rather than self-transcendence.
That's a good way to put it. It domesticates a radical practice.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? Tonglen seems like much more than just a meditation technique.
Oh, absolutely.
It emerges as this really complete, active spiritual path, doesn't it? One that integrates intention, wisdom, and direct action in a very powerful way. It offers this challenging but potent method for engaging directly with the sheer scale of suffering in the world, not by shutting down, but by training the heart to move towards it with courage and compassion.
A courageous, transformative engagement.
And it does this by systematically dissolving that self-cherishing mind, which, as you said, is the source of so much of our own anxiety.
Exactly.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
If we accept the premise that the greatest source of our own chronic personal anxiety is actually the ego's constant tiring effort to protect and defend itself.
Right, that background hum of insecurity.
And maybe Tonglen suggests something truly radical for our times.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most effective act of self-care isn't actually about building stronger walls around the self, trying to insulate it better.
What then?
Perhaps the most profound self-care, the path to genuine freedom from anxiety, involves fearlessly, compassionately, tearing those walls down altogether.
By willingly exchanging self for other.
That's the provocative suggestion. That true, expansive freedom is found not in protecting the self, but in dissolving its boundaries entirely.